Alrighty, in this video, what we're going to do is we're basically just going to go down the list of the components we need to implement. So we need to style some of the game board and style the status of choose your cards. Then we need to implement our stacks. Then finally, we implement our player hand, and then we're done with the client. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to style the game board by hopping into gameboard.scss, and I'm going to start off like usual with importing back variables. And I'm going to say c-game-board and say flex grow is 1. This will make it take up all the space remaining and push the chat all the way down to the bottom. Then we'll give it a position of relative, a display of flex, because you guys know how much I love flexbox, with the flex direction of column and a margin bottom of 10 pixels. The margin bottom of 10 pixels won't quite be apparent yet, but it will once we start implementing the player hand. Let's jump back here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're good. So then I'm going to style the black card. The black card is going to have a display of flex. Remember, the black card is the container for the black card and not the actual card itself. Remember that. So we're going to give it a display of flex, a flex direction of column, and a flex of none so that it doesn't grow or shrink. Then we're going to style the card inside of it, give it a margin bottom of 10 pixels. That'll push that choose your cards down a little bit. Then for the status, the game status, which is the choose your cards, all we got to do is include divider. Now, if you don't remember what divider is, so as you see, it's now working correctly. If you don't remember what divider is, we made it a long time ago in our variables.scss file when we created all of our mixins. So there's the mixin right there, divider, and yeah, so we're finally using that, which is super exciting. All right, let's go ahead and implement our stacks. We're first going to implement our stacks in JavaScript in our component, and then we'll style them afterwards. So the stacks are pretty straightforward. I'm going to start off with two helper functions. I'm going to say function render visible stack that takes in an op select stack, a select stack, and a stack. Actually, I'm going to change the order of these parameters. I'm going to start off with stack. Then I'm simply going to return stack.cards.map followed by card and index goes into, and it's going to go into a reference to a card. So remember, if the stack is visible, the cards array will list all of the cards in that stack. So now we can just simply render out the card by setting, let's start off with the key. The key is index. The map function, remember the map function, if you pass in a projection that includes two parameters, the first parameter is going to be the item itself that we're mapping over, and the second parameter is going to be the index of that item, which is a perfectly great thing to use for our key. Then I'm going to say is selectable equals op select stack can and op select stack or not op select stack in progress. Then I'm going to say on click is just going to be a function that says select stack. So all it does is invokes this select stack callback that is being added. Select stack callback. Huh. Then we're going to pass in the card itself. Now the card, of course, comes from the mapping. Then we're going to give it a type. Now all stacks are going to be white. And then we're going to give it a style of small. And that is our render visible stack. Now let's write the render hidden stack function, which is just going to take an account of how many white blank cards is it going to be rendering. And to do this, we should go ahead and import Lodash because we're going to use a Lodash method. So we'll import underscore from Lodash, and then we're going to return Lodash.range 0, count.map index goes into a card. So we're going to loop from 0 to however many cards are there. We're going to give the key a key of index. We're going to give the type white, and we're going to give the style of small. We don't need to do anything else. We don't need to make it selectable. We don't need it on click handler and so on. We don't need a card. We just need to render a blank white card X times where X is the count. Now we can finish our stacks component. So I'm going to say return And I'm going to return div class name equals stacks. And then I'm going to simply say stacks.map, stack goes into, and I'm going to do a multi-line thing here. I'm going to say const cards equals stack.cards, question mark, render visible stack, passing in our stack, our ops select stack, and our select stack callback. Otherwise, render hidden stack, passing in stack.count. So remember, the stacks can have an array of cards, or it can have a count of how many blank cards to render. Then we're going to put in a variety of classes. The first class is going to be stack always. The next one is going to be, if the stack is a winner, we're going to do is-winner, otherwise empty string. If the stack has cards, we're going to do shown, otherwise we're going to do hidden. And if the stack ID equals our stack ID, then we're going to say r-stack, otherwise we're just going to put in an empty string. And then finally, what we're going to do, we're going to do something interesting here. I'm going to say return cards.length, question mark, and then colon null. And what I'm doing here is I'm saying if it turns out that the stack, actually, an even better way to do this, well, no, I'm going to keep it like this. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep it like this. So I'm going to check to see if there are any cards that were rendered, then render them out, otherwise return null, meaning the stack won't render anything to the DOM. And the thing we're going to render is a div with a key. Remember, anytime you return React elements from an array or through an array, you have to add a key. So the key is going to be stack.id. The class name is going to be classes.join on a space. And then the innards is just going to be cards. So it's going to render the cards array that's returned from either render visible stack or render hidden stack. So that should be the entirety of this component. So let's scroll up to the top, and I'll scroll down slowly. And that's it. So now let's exit out of this. And now we see, without even having to refresh, we see that we have our stacks being rendered out. So you notice that the styling is not very good. It's breaking out. So we have three cards that are blank, or that are on their back, basically. And then we have our visible stack, that's card 5. And then we have 2 cards in this stack. And remember, that all comes from our stores game, where in our round, we have these stacks. One with 3, one with 1, one with 2. And then we have our visible stack that has this one card 5 in it. So now let's go ahead and style our stacks. So coming into stacks.scss, this shouldn't take very long. We're going to import back variables. Then I'm going to say c-stacks has a margin bottom of 20 pixels, a margin left of -5 pixels, a display of flex, a flex wrap of wrap, a justify content of flex start, a min height of 0, and an overflow y of scroll. Or how about auto? And by doing that, as you can see, nothing happens. So let's go ahead and refresh. I might have messed something up there. Let's make sure that I spelled... Oh, the class name of stacks should be c-stacks, not stacks. So I apologize for that. And now you see that we have a scroll bar here. And they wrap properly. And everything is awesome. There's obviously not a whole lot of space to view the cards here with this low of resolution. You could maybe implement a way to bring the chat down or hide the chat. That might be an interesting feature that you might want to add for lower resolution screens. But for now, we're not going to worry about it. So let's go ahead and finish our stacks SCSS, because now we have to style the stacks themselves. So each stack will have a margin of 5, a padding of 5, a border radius of 5, a background of darken color-background 5%, and a transition of background 500 milliseconds, and then my favorite cubic Bezier. And then we'll do our C card and give it a margin right of 5 pixels. And what this will do is this will make it very clear which cards are attached to which stacks. So as you see, the cards are grouped together by that dark background. So that's awesome. Then I'm going to say C-card last child, I don't want to give the last child a margin right of 5. So I'm going to say a margin of 0. Then I'm going to say our stack is going to have a background of darken, color background. Let's try 20%. So our stack is going to be colored slightly different than the other stacks to make it more clear which one is ours. So now that we have that, the only one thing we have to worry about now is the winner. So if it's a winner, so is winner, it's going to have a background of my favorite blue, color primary, and a color of color primary text, which I believe is that variable name, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And that is our stacks. So I think I'll end the video here because we've implemented these two major components. And then in the next video, we will wrap up with the implementation of our player hand. Well, I do want to test something real fast, though. I want to test being able to select the stacks. So let's go back into our game store, and let's change the step to step judge stacks. And let's change me to is_czar instead of is_playing. And then let's, in our stacks, let's go ahead, instead of saying count, we'll just do cards of ID is 1, text is hey there, set is whoa, and then we'll do that, and then we'll do that, and then stuff and things, ID is 2, and then 3, and then blah. All right, so now we should be able to select the stacks themselves. And as you can see, these are the stacks being rendered out. They now have the pointer cursor, and I can double click on them. And if I double click on them, I should be getting an event. See? If I double click on this stack, I get an event of game select stack, game ID 42, stack of IDs 2. So everything seems to be working great. All right, before we do the next video, I'm going to kind of undo this. I'm going to change me to playing again. So I'm going to set is_czar to false and is_playing to true, because in the next video, we are going to implement the player hand. And we'll see you guys then.